Yeah.
All right, everybody, so Douglas Finance Committee coming to order at
6:30 something.
34.
6:34 on March 26, 2024.
Thank you.
We'll go around the table and identify ourselves for the record. So Howard, would you start?
Howard D'Amico, Finance Committee.
Lynn Mazzulli.
Dick Vandenberg.
Sandy Pipers.
Ryan Hogan.
And we have our quorum. Carol and Heather told me already that they're not able to come.
And Mike as well.
Mike is coming,
Mike is coming. Are you two swapping out?
and
Okay.
Ryan will have to leave pretty soon, but
Okay.
he's gonna be our placeholder.
Okay. Timeshare.
All right.
All right, capital improvement.
Don't worry, Howard, I'm coming.
Go ahead, Mike.
So Michael, would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Mike Fitzpatrick, Chairman of the Capital Committee.
Okay, so carry on, Mike.
Okay, so on the, as you can see, on the special town meeting, we have a few different things on there. The road paving, that's part of the Northeast project.
Hang on a minute, Mike. Everybody have the special
Yep.
in front of them as opposed to the annual?
That one here. All right, the special.
All right, everybody good?
Yep.
All right, Mike, why don't you start over again, sorry.
So the first thing is that roadway paving repairs, that's part of the Northeast Main Street project that we had just done with the water line going up there. EV charging stations, that's to replace the heads that we have out in the parking lot that we had received through a grant, but they've been problematic right along from day one. So we need to change those. The town administrator had to get an approval from the granting authority that we could change them, because that was part of the requirement that we had to maintain them, so that approval's been made. He did receive two different estimates on that, and we put an extra $2,000 on the higher of the two estimates, or within a couple $1,000s of each other, to make sure that they could get repaired or replaced.
Can I ask how much revenue we're getting?
They're not online yet, that's what the problem's been. So they work so infrequently, because it works through a Wi-Fi connection, Matt, is that correct? Anyways, it works through a Wi-Fi connection, and it keeps losing it every time Verizon moves their tower out, wherever it is. So these are gonna be more cellular based.
My understanding is I think it's just a service to the town. I don't think we make any money, that people pay for their electricity, but
Okay.
it's being used, but I don't think we're.
I think it's net zero.
Right.
Oh, so people are paying for their own electricity, they're not getting that for free?
No, we don't, right now they have.
Oh, wait,
Well, because there's no way to set the, that's why we need to change these. right?
all right.
But we're not getting reimbursed from the state for this, correct? We're
No.
getting this the cost
No.
ourselves.
So as soon
The
as we get
state
it
paid,
fixed,
the
we're...
state paid to put in the original system, so we got a $50,000 grant.
Okay,
We paid $6,000 towards the project.
okay. So as soon
So
as we get them fixed,
basically, after we spend another $38,000, we'll end up, we're still under the original cost of what it cost, and we'll have ones that actually work.
right, and then people will pay for their own electricity, and
Yes.
the town of
Yep.
Douglas won't bear that burden.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Next thing is the post office parking lot. The estimates came in much higher than what we had already appropriated, the $90,000. So we're gonna add another $50,000 to that, so then he has the money to replace that parking lot. The highway department dump truck with the plow and sander, what we did with that is we took off the word international, because it's limited the highway superintendent of where you can purchase the truck, because it has to go according to the, what was appropriated. So we're gonna change the wording on that, but the trucks now are up to $285, if he can find one. So they're a year plus out. So it's very problematic. As you'll see when we get into the regular town meeting, there's another one on for the same amount. That is another truck, that's not a duplicate line item. School security system, we had designated $225,000 out of the opera funds for that. And after it went through the whole design process and first go around with the potential contractors, we found that we were missing some components. So what we did is we took, on this year, we had $140,000 that was in our budget assigned to an oil tank replacement. Right, we did one last year, which was $140,000, and they've struggled to try to find somebody to change that tank, actually bid on it, that might change it, bid on it. So they're still going through that process. So where they were short on the security system, it was a thought process through the capital committee that we reassign that money to their security system, so it still stays in their budget, and once they have this oil tank identified and planned out, then we can put it back onto the schedule and get it changed. The last thing on there is the cable broadcast server. That had failed. Pat was able to get a replacement for that, but it's still very old technology. He's having a lot of trouble to keep it going. Back, if you remember, back around 2016, we had, at town meeting, we had voted to put $50,000 towards a studio for the cable. So the money's gonna come out of that. Currently, they not gonna pursue the studio. So we're gonna take that they're gonna take that $50,000 out of their budget that they have and use it for the server. That's about it on the,
Was the original 50,000 cable part of their agreement with the?
yes,
Yes.
that's out of their funds. It
That's out of their
It didn't
funds.
come out of free cash,
Okay,
it came out of their funds.
Okay, so originally it came out of their fund as well?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And Mitch Cohen was here when
Yeah,
that,
I remember.
I was around the sign by law thing. He was very animated with that.
All right, any questions for Mike, anybody, in terms of the special town meeting? All right, I think we'll, so what else do you have for us, Michael?
Alrighty, Richard. He's the full name, jumping up.
Do you want to look at the annual for 2025, that one?
Yeah, that's all. I was just looking to see where my budget is. So as always, or as we have in the last few years, we're matching as close as we can to the Chapter 90 funds, the $360,000 for the road paving. Currently get $362,000 and change. That'll give them $720,000.
So this
So
is the,
that-
this is the first line of Article 10, everybody, if you look at the annual town meeting. Okay. Mike, carry on?
You got it, Sandy?
I'm getting there, slow but sure. Yes, there. Thank you.
This one.
Yeah. Post office HVAC unit replacement, that's been on our list. That went up $5,000 from last year's, it was at 60. Adam's current estimations that he's getting is around 65,000. This municipal HVAC system units is for the first floor of this building. That was on before, it got done. That's 130,000. Post office painting is what we used the last time, was 60,000. We did a pretty extensive paint job to that. This is per the contract that has to be done every 5 years. It should come in lower than that, but we're using the same figure to make sure that it gets done. The highway department loader with the plow is up to 315,000. That's that big front end loader that they're using. There's that truck that I mentioned before, the highway 6-wheel dump truck with the plow and the sander for $285. The highway department lawnmowers, I'm sure everybody sees them around town all summer long, zipping around. One of them is totally out, and the other one isn't gonna last much longer. There's a lot of things wrong with it, it's making noise. So the highway superintendent requested to put that on. The last thing is the transfer to the capital stabilization account for the purchase of the large apparatus at the fire department of $100,000. And the last thing on there, I just keep it on the bullet thing because we are working towards that, trying to come up with a plan for the replacement of the highway department. So I just keep it at there to remind everybody that it's coming.
Okay, any questions, anybody, on the FY '25 proposals from capital, which will be presented at the annual town meeting in May?
Can I go back
Absolutely.
now?
On
So,
the special?
yeah, so I think you said on Article 5, on the special, that the school security number 140 was theoretically being taken from funds that weren't being used.
Nope, that's not what I said.
Okay.
So what I said was, there's two different oil tanks that they need to
Yeah,
replace.
yeah.
So last year, we voted to approve to use $140,000 for one oil tank.
Okay.
They've struggled to get vendors to come in and actually quote the job and pursue it. So they're still going through that process. So instead of tying up another $140,000 until it's figured out, this new issue arose with the school security system, and it fell well short of what we've taken out of the opera funds. So with the school, between the capital committee and the school department, we decided to take that 140 that we had as a line item in our
Got it.
plan and put it towards the
So you've moved
security.
it from one ask to a different ask.
Correct, but
Okay.
I try to keep them in the department that we,
Yeah, okay,
that we
got
do,
it.
that if they don't have a need, then we can go somewhere else,
Okay.
but I don't think it's fair to take it away from them because they
Okay.
can't do it. so.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Either the special or the annual? Okay. Michael?
Okay, so now on the five-year plan, the 26, 27, and 28, we
Yep.
didn't touch that at all. That's the same as it was last year. 29, we had to create. So,
This is back on this annual town meeting. right?
correct, yep. So 29, the request didn't come in yet, but I know that the tanker truck is gonna surface real soon. We're gonna have to get it on the list somewhere. So I put that on and I used the same, or suggested to the committee that we put that on, to use the same dollar amount that we spent for the last truck that we just got in 22 of 750. Who knows where it's gonna come in. They used to be a lot lower than that, but it could end up being the same. But at the same time, by the time we get to that point with our capital stabilization account, we should have around $600,000 in that account, right? So we put these other things on there because that's where Adam had a lot of stuff on there. This is all gonna get changed as we go forward to see what works best for our capital plan. Over the last couple of years, we've struggled trying to get good information for the committee to do this. So the school department actually came in and Courtney had this little Excel spreadsheet, and it worked very well. So I asked her to share it, and we're gonna use that to send to the departments. So every January, it's their responsibility to give us an updated list for the capital. And I think it will be a much better process, instead of digging through all these papers trying to figure out what grades what and what we typically do. Anyways, that's what I got.
Any questions, anybody, on the projections going forward the next few years? They all are subject to change, of course, with,
Yeah, well, obviously, 29 is gonna change.
Yeah.
We can't sustain that kind of number. So, the way we created our capital plan was based off the number that we used last year, the year before, of 1,200,000 as like a baseline, not knowing what it's gonna be. Nobody's got a crystal ball, right? So,
Mike, is Article 10 is being proposed, and I'm presuming it will be proposed almost exactly as you've got it outlined here, including this placeholder for public safety and highway building, right? That'll still be
it's
in
on,
that.
it's on there to be determined, but there's no value to it, so you can't possibly vote on or approve money, you don't have any money, it has to be determined.
I understand, but it'll come up in town meeting
As discussion, yep.
as discussion.
Yep.
Can you give us an idea today what that discussion might look like? What are we talking about for timeline and ballpark pricing?
Well, ballpark pricing, I don't do ballpark pricing, because you don't know what it is. So, right now, we're in the middle of going through, working with the architect. We have a couple different challenges, one being the highway department, another one being the fire department. If you notice, we have some temporary trailers out there, we have to solve that issue. And get rid of those trailers. So the architect is working aggressively with us. He just finished up the roof project here on this building that we've already put the money aside for. That's going out to bid. If it hasn't already gone out to bid, it'll be out there very shortly, within days, I would assume. So we're working through some details of this highway bond, right? And so we have two challenges. One is the design, to come up with a cost for that, and the other is where it goes, right? Can it stay where it is, or are we gonna buy another piece of land, or are we gonna use something that we have? So that's all the moving parts of it, but to just throw out a ballpark at this time, I don't think would be responsible. I think it would just be misleading because you're just throwing out a random number.
Do we have a timeline that's
Well, I was hoping for
concept?
spring, because I've been dealing with this since the first year I got on the board, if everybody remembers back there.
Spring of 2025?
Days would turn into weeks and whatever, so, I don't know. I don't know if the town administrator's here. Are we thinking of potentially having the beginning stages of it in the fall, or do you think we're gonna end up into next year's spring?
You know, we've got to get something to town meeting by November. That's my objective. I think,
Both of us have been struggling with this, so it's,
you know, and Chairman Fitzpatrick's been a big help in this process and a necessary part of the process because of his experience. We've been able to vet the proposals that have been brought to us so far by the architect against real-world experience building these kinds of buildings, which is an advantage for the town of Douglas to have people with the skill set. And we know that Carol on the FinCom has a similar skill set. Right now, the architect is, for force of habit, has built many buildings around Massachusetts without this kind of feedback, all right? So they're comfortable, and they've settled into a spreadsheet and an estimating model that has generated a number that I don't think we're comfortable going to the taxpayers of Douglas to ask them for, and by way of debt. It's just not appropriate. So the burden now comes back to us, right? We're second guessing our design professionals, so we're gonna have to go out and get really solid information to present, and hopefully they will eventually consider and acquiesce to the model that we're gonna suggest. But I think the factor here is so significant. I mean, I think it's half, right? So it's not like we're trying to shave off a couple $1 million bucks on a $50 million project. We're trying to cut in half, you know, a 20-some-odd $1 million project and cut it in half. That's a big deal in a town like Douglas. We don't need anything fancy. We don't need anything made out of brass that shines or whistles. We need something that is going to stand up to the job for a long time in a utilitarian fashion. And our highway guys, through their creativity and their capabilities for years, have made things work. And they are going to continue to work in that environment because we're just not equipped to give them specialized bay for every single thing that we could possibly imagine they might use the building for. They need a building that will generally meet their needs. So that's kind of where we're at. I think we're engaging with an industry that is widespread in the United States, and there are many competitors building basically steel building kits on concrete slabs And I'm new to it, Selectman Fitzpatrick is not, but as we build a
I'm
procurement,
new to the procurement part, and he's not. So what we're trying to do is marry the two together. I know how to build stuff, he knows how to buy it. So we're trying to figure out if we can come up with a way to think outside the box to make it work, is basically what it comes down to. So I don't like guesstimates because it just doesn't work for me. I like actual numbers that you can put your stuff to. I think, and so Matt touched on it a little bit. They come out with their spreadsheet and it's just, see how you're gonna react. Oh, that's great. All right, good, let's go. Well, they didn't get that response, right?
Right.
We all have the same mindset. You guys sit on a different board, but we're all thinking the same way. We're trying to be responsible and make sure we come up with something that is gonna satisfy the needs of the town, but also be logical and affordable, so.
Okay.
Anyways,
Thank you both. Great.
I have a question. So when we vote Article 10, are we voting to approve this?
no, what, the highway building?
Well, no, Article 10.
Article 10, yes.
So how can we approve a number that is TBD? How do we?
Yeah, if you take
That's
it-
the way you're approving it. That number
But
will be
in-
determined later.
So what if the number is like a number that we don't like, or what, so,
But so,
You'll vote on that.
When there is a number, we'll vote again.
is this confusing?
yes, this is,
that
the TBD is confusing.
I think the motion will not include that at all.
Right.
If you have the motion that we approve, it will only be up to the subtotal. Maybe, Mike, if we could put it into,
Can you put it in a different,
or,
because it looks
If you
like,
think it's gonna be that confusing, take it off, but
I would.
everybody needs to be aware of the fact that we
Your
have.
concern is we're approving now a
Yes.
number that will fill in later.
Yes.
Got it.
it will not be included in the motion,
Yeah.
Fair enough.
because there's
Yes.
no.
Maybe the chairman could put it in the explanation, maybe, of finance.
That wouldn't go over well?
no, it's saying, kind of saying we agree, but we really don't know what
Fair
we're
enough.
agreeing
Yeah,
to.
I think you're right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gene.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mike on either the annual or the special?
No, but just to touch on that real
Okay,
quick.
Yep.
My only reason I have that on there is to remind everybody that it's something that we need to be, get done.
Mindful of that.
It's hard to ignore it riding by and seeing that, building up there with the trailer on the outside of it. But just trying to keep it in front of everybody so that they're aware of the fact that it's coming. It's just a matter of when Matt and myself get comfortable enough to say, yeah, we can stand behind this. We couldn't stand behind what was said to us so far, so.
Appreciate that.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay. Anything else, anybody? For Mike? All right.
I'm paroled.
You are.
I gotta go next door. Thanks.
Ryan, you have
I'm gonna head out as well, thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
So Ryan is leaving, but we welcome Mike Hutt back. Who's all better from all his aches and pains, I hope.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Bob, you want to identify yourself for the record?
Good evening, Bob Sullivan, Systems Manager for the Water and Sewer Department.
So what are we looking at here, Robert? What you sent me and I passed to everybody else, is that?
I did print out some hard copies
Okay.
for
Do you have an extra one, Rick? Just want to look at the Gene reformatted, just to make sure we're looking at the same numbers.
You don't have the postage number memorized, Bob?
I got a lot of stuff memorized, but.
So give us kind of the high points of what we're looking at. We don't need to go through every line, but.
Right, I mean, typically the way I do it, we'll go through and touch on the key points and what the changes are.
Okay.
So, I mean, the salaries, the changes, there's positions in there that are not currently filled, but I need to fund them so that we can fill them. They've been funded, you know, as we do it, all the positions are always funded, but the increases are based on the compensation reform chart, steps and percentages on the COLA that were proposed. Let me see. So as we go down, the first few, we don't really have control over their health insurance, the town retirees, the employee FICA, the insurance, the waivers. So when we get to electric, I went up 5,000, just based on a few things. There was, we got a new pump station going on Gilboa Street. I'm sure most of you have seen that and the work that went along with it. That pump station is larger, has bigger pumps, will use a little more electricity. Also, we don't really know the fluctuations on the electricity. And we were tracking right on target so far for this year. Heating, same thing, went up 1,000, don't, just based on the variables on the heating oil costs. We're going to natural gas on some of the buildings down the treatment plant, so I'm not sure the effect of that yet. We haven't seen it. Should go down, but I'd rather budget conservatively, and the money will go back into the retained earnings if we don't use it. Let's see, so the big items are on the repairs and maintenance item. So I typically generate a list of, well, it's a lot. There's over $1 million here worth of stuff. We go through with the water sewer commissioners. We kind of narrow it down to what we need to do this year, what can be delayed or put off as an item on a different future one, or if we need to look to see if we need to do, one borrowing to lump a bunch of them together to move forward with the borrowing. But we don't have anything planned for borrowing for this year, so we'll push that off to next year. So the items that are included in there are some tree removal at the mobile station, some fence repairs from tree damage down at the treatment plant, 25,000 for some fire alarm panel upgrades, and then 25,000 for repairs on one of the wastewater pieces of equipment that's down there. We need to do some repairs at this point, but in the asset management plan that we just did to look at all of the wastewater system, they have it in there as an item that we should be budgeting soon to replace.
So that'd be included in capital as opposed to operating?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the list, here's the list. I'll pass around so you guys can see it if you want to get a little nervous, but because their list that they came up with came up to about $8.6 million in just repairs and stuff that need to be upgraded. Some of that's not going to happen. I'll shoot that down just through my vetting process. But the piece of equipment that needs to be replaced that I put in $25,000 to repair, they have an estimate of $788,000 for the replacement. So, we'll do repairs on it to see if we can extend the life a little further. But if we have some other big projects coming up, we'll look at, like I said, lumping some of those to do a one-time borrowing to fund a bunch of the projects. So that covers the additional in that line, so it's about 63,000 over what the normal budgeted number of 50,000 is. A few down, so we raised the lab testing. I'm sure you've all heard of PFAS. Well, it's all the talk is about it in the drinking water and some in the bottled water, if you saw that news article that came out. But the PFAS is everywhere, and now they're getting to the point that they want us testing the wastewater and the wastewater discharge to see if the PFAS is in there. So we had to up the lab budget to cover the cost to do the additional testing, because we have to test the influent, the effluent, the sludge. There's multiple spots in the test are about $700 a piece, and we'll have to do them quarterly. We have a line item there. You probably see the bolded number, the 50,000. So we budget for special engineering just in case things come up. That's one of those. I highlight it just because it's not something that we have earmarked that we're actually going to spend. It's, we need it in there if something comes up and we need some engineering done to move forward with a project or finish up a project. Let's see. The next big item that went up some was the other services. That's probably the biggest line item in the budget other than salaries. That increase was solely based on the Synagro. That's the waste hauler that hauls out the sludge from the treatment plant. We just signed a new contract with them, and that contract was up 14%. So this covers that increase. If you know further, it's a drop in the budget on the 20,000 drop for the capital item. I think we discussed it a little differently. I talked to Gene about it, but there's a waste pump there, so it's a replacement pump for down the treatment plant. We have about 15 pumps, and we theoretically should budget about one a year, just to, we need a spare pump on the shelf, and then if a pump gets replaced, we would need to replace the spare. So I don't have several spares that I'd like to have on the shelf, so we have it went from 30,000 because the pump over at the school is about a $30,000 pump, and the pump that I want to replace this year is about a $10,000 pump, so you see a $20,000 decrease in that line item, but it's something that's not a continuous purchase, but it is a one-time large purchase. Now, the other item is under the replacement equipment, which I think me and Jean needed to talk about as to whether that's, should go into the capital item?
Yeah, it's on capital.
Okay.
So these roll up to Article 6 on the annual.
So I think the number we had was 100.
100.
Should be 110 because I have an item on capital in there.
But that's, I think that's a different one.
So theoretically, this 55,000 would come out of this budget then?
It doesn't come out.
It doesn't come out, but the funding source, she earmarks it so I can't spend it on other things.
On the annual town meeting, it's voted salary, expense, capital, debt. So he's held to the salary line, the expense line, the capital line, the debt line. So he couldn't use that 100,000 for electricity. It would have to be used for capital.
Right, so if I have 55,000 in there as capital, like I can't say, I never mind, I don't want to buy that, I want to buy a new truck. You know, I can't shift it around from that, so.
Yeah.
So the 55,000 is the replacing a lot of the HVAC equipment down the treatment plant. For one, it's 20 years old, and the second part is that we're switching over to the natural gas. Some of the equipment that we have is newer, and we can convert it with the orifice kits to change the size of the fuel orifices. Some of them are 20 years old and they don't have conversion kits, or they're sealed chambers, so you can't change them out. We have to replace the entire equipment. And they are pretty much at end of life to begin with, so it's not like we're replacing them early just to meet that need. We're just replacing them with something better that we can use now. Let's see, that's all the big items on the sewer side.
Okay, any questions on sewer for Bob, anybody? All right, so water, any highlights here, Bob?
Same thing, salaries, same scenarios on the sewer side. Let's see. Keep it down, there's 13,000 increase on the repairs and maintenance. Again, that is tree removal and fence repairs at the water plant in Mobile. Over at the Mobile pipeline, we had some huge trees come down this year and took out half our fence over there. And we have a lot, I don't know how much you guys look when you drive by going down Main Street, but there's a whole row of pine trees up in the back. And they all go like right along the driveway, but they're all where all our electric wires go. Pine trees, they're rather large and not healthy looking, so we'll probably remove those. And there's a few big ones that will definitely take out the building if they fall in that direction, so. Have to do some tree removal there. Let's see. Went up 10,000 on the professional and technical. That's lab testing. Again, we got additional PFAS testing requirements, and we have a UCMR, which is the PFAS that you've heard about up to date is about 6 parameters that they test for. The new UCMR that we'll be doing this year, it's got another 29 they want to test for. So I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot about that in the future. More towns needing to add treatment, and everybody panicking that they shouldn't be drinking water. Let's see, same thing with the special engineering. I just put 50 on each side, the water and the sewer. Down. I have a PRV under other supplies. We increased, it's about 15,000. So we have 2 PRVs. PRVs are the pressure reducing valves between the 2 pressure zones. There's one right on Main Street across from the Brewster pump station that we put in a few years back. And there's one on West Street right in front of the cemetery.
Right, yep.
So there's two different ones that separates the two pressure zones. How that works is it's a valve, there's a much higher pressure on this side than this side, because we don't want the additional pressure coming downtown, because we already have over 100 PSI down there. If I didn't have something separating those pressure zones, it'd be up like closer to 200 PSI. So it separates the zones, but then if there's a major demand for water downtown, if there was a huge fire or something, when that pressure drops, when they get on the fire hydrants and drop the pressure by pulling a lot of water, that valve will open and allow water to come from that side to this side to give additional fire flows.
So that's the $15,000?
Yep.
Okay.
So there's two of them. I plan on doing one this year. They're about 15 apiece. Other than that, I think that's about it for the big items. Everything else is pretty standard and fairly level funded.
Bob, last year, a couple of years ago, there was talk of some cool techie thing where you could see how various parts of the water system were working,
Yep,
or
so-
mapping or something. What was that again?
So, well, we have a bunch of them. So we got a grant to do mapping, so we've got the entire system in a GIS program now. We work with Matt with some of that
And
fairly soon.
was that cool to do?
Yeah,
I mean,
it worked
did
out well. We have the whole system mapped out. We know where everything is. Some other parts of that, part of these upgrade projects that we're doing, we added some fire hydrants that have technology in them. So it actually works out really well because I catch everybody stealing water now. So when someone gets on a hydrant, I know immediately.
So if I stand next to one of those hydrants, can I get on Wi-Fi?
Nope. Nope, but I can pull up my phone and tell you what the pressure is in the area right now. But we were catching the contractors left and right, and they didn't believe me how it worked, because we went over to do one of the flow tests over there, and I said, well, let me shut the alarms off first. And they're like, what are you talking about? They don't do that. I said, all right, I won't shut it off, go ahead. And as soon as they turned the hydrant on, an alarm came on my phone. So now they're all nervous over there, so they call me, oh, we gotta do this, we're gonna run some water, so. It helps, because the contractors are notorious for just thinking they can do what they want, but now we show up immediately and they're like, oh, how'd you know we were doing it? So, and that was part of the project that was funded mostly through grants, so
Okay.
Nice.
we included some of that.
So any questions for Bob, anybody, on water? How are our wells doing?
Good, we just rehabbed all the wells, and we haven't done, like, the Glen Street wells haven't been done since they were put in, almost 30 years. The guy that came out and did the wells, he didn't believe me that we haven't done them in that long, because he said, you know, a lot of towns do them every year. He took them out, and so I can't say there was anything wrong with them. We replaced some of the parts just to, you know, we got our money's worth out of them. It was cheap money to replace the parts and the pump motors and stuff, so. All the wells have been done and upgraded this year so we should be good for a long time on the wells. We've never really had a capacity issue based on our usages. Our issue with capacity is that the state back, probably, I'd say a few years ago, probably 10 years ago now, 10, 12 years ago, the state reduced what we're allowed to withdraw. It's not that our pumps can't handle it or our wells, you know, the aquifer. It's just that the state went based off of the DCR report that said we don't need that much because we don't have that much growth. But with all the new construction and the new buildings, we're getting up to that limit. So it's just a matter of going through a permitting process to get them to raise that limit again.
But new construction is still pretty much well and septic, isn't it, in Douglas?
I mean, like the big warehouses.
Oh, warehouses,
Yeah,
okay,
so
yeah.
the one that's in the Tri-Town is off of our water.
Yep.
The 1.1 is off of ours. And then the North Village, that project, so that's still moving forward.
Gotcha, yeah.
It's 122 units, I'd say they're about half right now.
Because those require to have fire suppression systems inside, or?
No.
No, they're not?
Those don't.
Okay.
There was a lot of stuff that was done. They put a cistern in up there because there was talk that they were gonna put a booster station in to boost the pressure to get them their fire flows that they needed. We went round and round with them over, I needed to see the design because I didn't think the booster station would work. Because if you don't have enough volume feeding it, you can't put it out, so. But some of that issue will be resolved. I mean, they put a cistern in to temporarily get them by for that purpose, but if we do the North Street project that there's been discussion of, and that we're at like 95% on the design, That includes a tank at the top of North Street, and that would fix all the fire flow issues up in that area there.
All right, any other questions for Bob, anybody?
Yeah.
Okay, Howard?
So can you walk me through this lower box on the second page?
So that's how the budget is funded.
Hmm,
So the first number, the 1.581065.
Sure.
That's based on user fees.
Sure.
Charges based on selling the water
Yep.
and the sewer.
yeah,
The reserve for debt is 101,658. That's
Yep.
money that we've charged fees for. We already have it in the bank. So
in
that's our.
your bank.
Yes, well, whatever bank Gene puts it in.
Right, but
So
it's
that
not
money
the
has
general
been collected.
fund.
No,
Right.
It's in the enterprise fund.
Okay,
It's already been collected off of fees that were earmarked for the purpose of the debt, like the wastewater treatment plant was built.
okay,
When they built the treatment plant, instead of raising rates to do it, they set up a special fee. It was $63 per customer to cover that cost of the debt. We collected enough money to pay off the debt, so we stopped charging the fee, and that money's in the bank, and we just make the loan payment every year. This is the last year, right?
Yes.
make the loan payment every year.
So they took out basically a mortgage to do the work and then
Yeah.
charged everybody a $63 fee.
Yeah,
That estimate of $63, I'm guessing you probably had additional people
Adding
on,
customers.
Mhm.
and-
Added customers, so now you've collected in more revenue than the debt obligation to pay it off. So as he's saying, he's got $100,000 in our account in the enterprise fund. So they shut off the $63 charge. They don't need to charge the users anymore. And they will continue to make the regular mortgage payments until that debt is repaid 100%.
but bear with me. This line item, reserve for debt,
Yep.
is that reserved funds to address the last year of paying the debt?
The current year payment.
So if you look at, that's a funding, if you look at, again, Article 6,
No, Gene, bear with me. I'm just looking at what Bob's proposed. I don't see debt payments
Yeah, there's.
in it. Am I
Yes.
missing that?
Yeah, it's on the sewer.
Okay,
If you look here, it's down at the bottom of the page, so this is all the debt.
yeah, okay,
Look at
that's
the
what I'm
number
looking
there,
for.
That's the number,
to
and
understand.
it matches that number.
That's what I'm looking to understand. Okay,
And
so that line item trades off
Yep, one for one.
from a fund that's already been built and collected. Okay.
it's a
Then
little clearer in Article 6 of the town meeting.
it's-
He's trying to match my budget.
Yeah, I know, yeah, I just,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, debt.
And
So-
then, so we have sewer system development.
yep,
So when we do a new connection,
mm-hmm,
on water, it's a $2,500 fee connection,
mm-hmm,
and on sewer, it's a $5,000 connection fee.
mm-hmm.
That money we put aside, and we reserve that for system development.
Okay,
So we have money in the bank similar
Okay,
to that. So that
okay.
money's in the bank.
okay,
And we're
I like
doing-
it so far.
When we're doing something that is an improvement to the system or an upgrade, we use that fund to cover that.
And the last item on this, retained earnings.
Yeah, that's the.
Those are also from your retained earnings,
Correct.
correct?
Yep.
Okay. So. Okay,
So the retained earnings, the way we worked that out was, if you look at the 160, if you look at those items that are additional,
yeah,
That's
right,
outside.
right.
those are the items that basically make up that retained earnings.
So if you don't use the highlighted engineering architectural numbers
That
in a year,
100,000 would go back into retained earnings at the end of the
the
year.
retained earnings 160 drops back down because you didn't need it.
Actually, the retained earnings would go up because you don't have the expense, but
Right,
you're still gonna
but the
collect.
line
revenue.
item would go down.
The expense for the line item would
Right,
go down.
right,
Yes,
right,
yeah,
right. The retained earnings would go back up.
would go up.
Right.
yes.
Okay.
Basically, retained
All right.
earnings is another word for net
Free
income.
cash.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
a for-profit entity, that'd
Yeah.
be net income.
So somebody brought this up in the last month or two, this concept that we don't really see the private piggy banks per se. And this says that there are other line item accounts for water sewer that give you this type of flexibility, right? Because on your budget, you've got, I just took 6 items that are extremely loosely line items, right? The engineering architectural on both, right? The other services on the sewer side is a line item of 160.
Yeah. So the other
And any other
service,
budget part would be apoplectic over that kind of a general line item. But you can do it because you've got the revenues either being generated this year or having been generated in previous years, and you've got retained earnings you can draw from at the moment. Okay. And there's nothing in here to suggest that the 1.9 number could get you into a danger going forward of using up retained earnings
no,
in a
so,
manner that 5 years from now, you'd still need 1.9, but not have the last 4 items available.
correct.
There's nothing causing you that concern.
No, and the system development, I mean, each year,
Yeah.
we have new connections,
Yeah.
so that's kind of
So those numbers
replenishing itself.
work their way back into the budget.
And I say it's a 2,500 and a 5,000,
That's
but
okay.
they're
Sure.
also based on the
Sure.
size.
Sure.
So like the new building down, the Tri-Town building, that was more like a $13,000 connection fee because of the size of the pipe that was feeding it.
Before this draw request, what are your retained earnings?
So, let's
The
say,
retain- just to be clear, the. Department
Gene's gonna
of
get nervous
Revenue-
about me throwing.
I didn't
out
ask for a general number, did I? Right?
The Department of Revenue actually looks at reserve for debt, water development, sewer development, and retained earnings as one number.
Mhm.
I separated out on my general ledger because I want Bob to know that we had collected that 101 previously, it's for debt.
For a reason.
So,
Mhm.
for that
Yep.
particular
Mhm.
reason. So
Mhm.
we have a,
Yep.
so the retained earnings that Department of Revenue approved was 1,230,511. But again, it
Okay.
incorporates all of those
Okay.
subcategories that I hold on the general ledger.
Okay,
Now, the debt, as Bob indicated, it rolls off this year.
right,
So you don't have
So I
the
don't have
expense, you won't need the
Right.
reserve
income.
for
Right,
debt. That
right,
will be gone.
right.
And Bob also told you about the increase.
I did not mention that yet, but that's what I was gonna get to
Yeah.
once we get past your nervousness of me throwing out numbers.
So-
You guys are great, you guys did well. Okay,
So,
that helps, thank you very much.
on the raise
Thank you.
from user fees and charges,
Mhm.
that number includes a potential rate increase. We're gonna go through that process and probably do a public hearing in the next few months, so
Okay,
that is factored in there as well.
okay, thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Howard. Gene, anything else on this?
No,
Water,
I just
sewer,
want to
Amy?
make that point, and thank you for that opportunity, Howard.
Okay, anybody else for Bob? All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you, Bob.
Good night.
Mr. Benoit?
Sandy, I realized I have my brown glasses on tonight, we match.
Glad to see you.
Right, yes, exactly. I just pull out the set that lets me see.
Yep.
Thanks, Bob, appreciate it.
They work, they work.
They work,
right,
right.
So Matt, you want to identify yourself for the record and
Sure.
your
Matthew
role in
Benoit.
our town hall?
Matthew Benoit, Director of Community Development.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
So what are we talking about tonight? Matt?
I have your agenda, but I believe we're going over my budget. but
Do we have anything from you to look at?
I have a bunch of articles on, and I just don't know what your agenda is, but.
So Gene, what was your vision for
Go through the articles.
the articles? Okay, of the special or the annual or both?
I think we have anything.
They're all on the
special. I think
annual.
they're all on the
Okay.
annual.
Okay, so if you'd all get your annual town meeting warrant, this is not the public hearing, which will be our next meeting, but Matt's gonna give us a overview of those which come out of his office, I guess. Is that right, Matt?
Yes. Let's see, which one is first? I know you have a citizen's petition on here. Would you like me to, I could just reflect that the Conservation Commission has voted to unanimously support the citizen's petition? Just
Well,
give you that information.
Which one is that?
That's Article 13.
So before Article 13, are there any, Matt?
No.
So if we're just taking them in order as they're on the warrant, Article 13 is the first one that,
I have one set. We can share. Maybe would you share?
sure, I have a separate, I have another annual.
Do you have one more set? Okay, great. Thank you.
This one could be,
I was
I didn't know
doodling,
if you could-
yes,
oh,
yes,
you
and
just doodles, I don't mind the
important notes.
doodles,
No, they're
but-
important doodles though. Thanks.
So would everybody look at Article 13 then of the annual? Matt, do you know the backstory to this at all?
It's a citizen's petition. They're looking to increase the enforcement of the stormwater, or the wetlands regulations in our general bylaws, and increase the enforcement fee from $200 to $300, including some extra language in there that helps bolster enforcement. The Conservation Commission voted unanimously on March 18th to support this petition. I'm
So-
prepared to just relay that.
Okay.
And the fee increase is in line with what states are charging for the
Correct.
state?
Yep.
Okay.
So was the feeling of the citizens that the fee was too low?
Yes,
And there were other enforcement issues that this addressed, do you think?
yes.
Like what?
So,
I know you're not the citizen, Matt.
yeah, right, exactly. So, and I don't want to speak kind of on behalf of them, but the whole point in this was to just get more language right out of the general bylaw and put it into, into the statute and put it into our general bylaws.
Okay, gotcha. Any questions for Matt on Article 13? Again, everybody, this is the draft. This is not our public hearing, but we're getting a heads up, I guess. All right, what's next in order, Matt?
Article 14 is the zoning amendment bylaw, the solar bylaw.
What's the backstory to this?
So this actually hit town meeting in November, but it got passed over for reasons unknown. I think the planning board did not hand the report in to the moderator, and it got passed over. But this is the same exact thing. The planning board voted unanimously to support this and send it to the town meeting warrant. It's the recommended changes by the Attorney General after our solar bylaw had already passed last spring.
So the AG approved this language then?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, last 2 falls ago was when the solar bylaw passed. And then we finally got feedback in time for the last fall, put it on for the warrant, and it didn't make it through, so we had to re-advertise a new public hearing and put these same changes on for this warrant.
So as I recall, at the special, there was no vote on it at the
Right.
town meeting, right? It was
Exactly.
just withdrawn.
Right.
Okay. Okay, any questions, anybody on Article 14 for Matt? All right, carry on, Matt.
Article 15 is a transfer of land ownership from the town of Douglas to the Conservation Commission. This land was taken in tax title, and that appeal period has passed. And this parcel of land was actually identified in the master plan as a parcel for consideration for conservation protection in perpetuity. The reason we're really interested in it is because there's a pending application just south of this on Caswell Court where we were expecting some sort of filing for housing, and there'd be an opportunity for us to ask them to provide access to this property so it can be recreationally accessed. It is landlocked right now, and there's really no way to get to it otherwise. So it being protected in conservation in perpetuity is consistent with the master plan of this town.
So is the backstory that it was identified in the master plan?
Yes.
And now we have an opportunity to,
Exactly.
what do you think the likelihood of that housing development plan would go through? I mean, if it's landlocked now,
It's hard to say. I mean, they just submitted an ANRAD plan for flagging of wetlands. We haven't seen an actual plan for housing yet. That's just what we anticipate. We haven't got that yet, so. But there's the river that crosses this. They'd have to build a wetlands crossing in order for us to access this. and that might be expensive, but
Oh, yeah. Vernal pool.
So why now, Matt, is this available? It,
it was taken by tax title.
okay. And that, so to the right of it, that little subdivision, what is that?
That is the 40B project on North Street.
Oh, and that's the Sutton Town line at the top there then?
Yes.
Oh, I see, so that's all North Street to this?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that road up in the side is Brown Road.
Yep.
And that's but we can't access that. That piece is owned by a private resident.
Okay, any question, anybody on Article 15? Okay, anything else, Matt?
Yes. Article 16, this is not a revised stormwater bylaw, this is a new stormwater bylaw. So I think the warrant should reflect that, this vote to approve the adoption of a new Article 12 in the general bylaws. That's how that should be.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Um,
So we currently have an Article 12 and this would replace it?
there is no Article 12.
So this would add an Article 12, okay. And why do we need an Article 12 now?
So, our MS4 permitting is a state mandate, and we're supposed to be following the EPA's guidelines for municipal storm sewer system, I believe is the end of this 4S, I missed one. Anyway, and one of those compliances to create a general bylaw for governance of stormwater. And what this does, this makes the Conservation Commission available to govern stormwater for clearing of anything over an acre. And they would administer a permit and set up their own policy and regulations following this vote. But in order to be in compliance with MS4 stormwater, we put on 2024 that we would put a general bylaw out. This is also a little reactionary to some of the stormwater issues we've been having. This kind of came on rather quickly. But this went to the select board in 2018, I believe, and did not make it through the select board at the time. The planning board was the administering authority, but we've since revised this to be the Conservation Commission, because that's consistent with a lot of other municipalities, that the Conservation Commission handles stormwater, and they already handle it in one article of our general bylaw anyway. So
Okay, yeah.
it makes sense to have them the administering authority of this.
Is some of this behind the scenes some state action then?
Yes.
So we got to be consistent with what the state requires?
Right.
Okay.
This is drafted by town council.
Yes, town council has reviewed this. This was drafted by our MS4 consultant, Nick Christopher. He's actually on for the select board meeting right now to take questions on this. And it's been reviewed by town council. There's been some minor amendments to this, but otherwise, it's fully vetted by council.
Okay, any questions on Article 12 on that? Right, anything else, Matt?
Yes, I have Article 21, which is an easement at 75 Northwest Main. I have a photo. It's not exactly on point, but I'd be happy to share this. This is a draft easement provided to us by the property owner. This is to fix a stormwater issue that's been happening over there. And this is the low point on Northwest Main, and we have a contract with Stantec to do a stormwater design, but it involves us accessing this property to install a pipe that would go on their property. And so they've drafted this easement for consideration at town meeting.
So where on Northwest Main is this, more or less? What's a landmark near 75?
Boy, I'm not
Or how far is it from something?
I'm not exactly sure. But this is a low point in the road.
Okay.
And where water seems to settle. And we actually put a roadside, almost like a basin, on to temporarily remediate stormwater that's been occurring over there. And it's working, but when it's not maintained, the water just sends right into this gentleman's property. And they've the plan in fact had enough. So they proposed this easement for us to consider this change, and we had it engineered and designed for fixing.
So my little Google map says we can't find 75 Northwest Main Street in Douglas.
Is that at the bottom of the hill after the fork with Wallace Street? Kind of if you're headed towards the church at the Common?
Unfortunately, you guys know this town better than I do.
But I thought by Smith Hill there was a big drainage.
Yeah,
There is
I
a big, the
think it's
solar
more
farm has
over
that
there.
big,
More that direction?
Yeah, further up,
yeah.
Okay.
heading toward what is the,
Because I used to live at 132 Northwest Main, and that was after the fork headed towards the dam on the reservoir.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I'm thinking 75 is going to be closer
I'm gonna
towards
put
the
in
Common.
It is.
Northwest
That's closer.
Main, just for fun.
Where's it?
Yeah. I think it's at the bottom. So if you're headed from
interesting.
Wallace Street, the
Yeah.
the fork in the road there,
Mm-hmm.
and you go down there's that hill that you
Yeah.
kind of go down.
Mm-hmm.
There was a relatively new house, split level, that they had built on the left-hand side, kind of a
Okay.
green style home. The
Okay,
water used to pond there at the bottom of that hill area. I'm wondering if that's where that is.
okay.
So the owner of the property is happy to give the easement to the town to
Yes.
fix it, right?
Probably
proposed
fix the
Okay.
water issue, yeah.
And it helps both the town's problem and the homeowner's problem.
Yes.
Right.
Right,
So that's where I think it is. There was ponding in the road there.
We'll have to take a FinCom
freeze.
field trip.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Take the show on the road.
Right,
Yeah.
the view.
All right, anything else, Matt,
I'm just pulling it up.
on these articles?
Pulling the property up on the phone to see kind of what this is near. Yeah, it is closer to the Common, you're right,
Yeah.
Church Street. And it is before the fork.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. So it's gonna be,
so I can visualize that.
mm-hmm.
it's shortly thereafter that there's wetlands on either side of the road. It's kind of
Mhm.
like wooded and kind of seasonal pools on the side of the road.
Those are actually a little further down.
Yeah, further down towards the Common. yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so
When
that's
I
kind
come
of
home
where.
from Market Basket, I sometimes go that way.
Oh, okay, okay.
All right, Matt, anything else for us?
I don't believe so, that should be everything.
Yeah, one more. Number
Please.
Oh,
22.
I'm sorry.
22?
22,
Yeah.
so, yeah, this is part of the, the whole reason we're doing the general bylaw is funding for our consultant to do municipal separate storm sewer system compliance MS4 permitting. The
What's
appropriate,
MS4 mean again?
yeah, that municipal separate storm sewer system
Okay.
compliance.
Yeah.
I see the 4.
Right, so this is year 7, and last year they asked for the same amount, and this engages our consultant to keep doing certain, mapping, recommendations for infiltrations and different green infrastructure that we can propose, and they really do a great job for us, and they're available for us anytime we need them, and they're real helpful for Adam and the highway department.
Municipal separate storm sewer system,
Yes.
MS4.
Did we approve that kind of a fund last year?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
All right, anything else for Matt, anybody? So Matt, you'll be at the public hearing in 2 weeks in case citizens are there and
Yes.
have questions and
Yep.
so on. All right, thank you, sir.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is it? All right, so Matt's not able to talk to us now, but I have on the agenda administrative report. So I think for homework, everybody, it's just read through the special and the annual for our meeting on April 9, because that's really our focus, is to go through this in a public forum and people can comment or have questions if they have them. And then May 6th is the town meeting. Any other loose ends we need to do, Jean?
Well, Bob's just going to get that. This is the updated
Oh,
budget.
okay, great.
It's not
Are we still in the black?
Well, let Matt address that. I believe we are.
Do we have extras?
Is it one piece of paper?
No,
No, it's set.
205, oh, wait,
Oh, wait.
I gave you my page one.
Oh, I see what it is. Yeah,
That was the whole package.
Yes.
right.
Yes,
Move the
there.
back down,
should
right.
be,
There's 1 through 5
1 through
for
5,
who needs a
right.
1 through 5.
I have a 1 through 5.
Everybody have a 1
And
through
there's
5?
Matt.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Wojcik, you have the floor.
I'm gonna try to hit a few different points.
Give us the old update, Matt.
When you review the warrant, you will note a substantial number of transfers from free cash. And you add it all up, and we're gonna end up in the $1.4 million range with a final resting balance, when we started off at about 3.7. The goal all along has been to build the town's reserves to the point where we approach the market for bonded indebtedness, we would get a good credit rating because our reserves were at a threshold on the scorecard that would get us a higher score. At the same time, it is also true that free cash is an asset of the town to be used, not coddled, right? So we're not trying to build a nest egg or a treasure chest. It is good that the town has realized revenues that we didn't expect, or that our department heads have turned back money at the end of the year because they saved money. That's all well and good. At the end of the day, if various department heads make the case that they have specific needs for the ongoing operation for current service levels, then we shouldn't not fund their project request because we want to keep our free cash balance high. And this was a, sort of a philosophical crossroads that I've had to cross in the last 2 weeks with Chairman Fitzpatrick asking, Capital Chairman Fitzpatrick asking, how much can we spend here really? And, the complicating factor here is that some of the things we buy are becoming astronomically expensive. Trucks in particular, it's taking a very long time to get them, and their cost is just skyrocketing. And I've been trying to find some industry report that'll explain why, and I haven't gotten one that's compelling yet. Some of them say semiconductor chips, others say it's a steel issue for the chassis. I'm not sure what it is. So I am comfortable with where we are, spending down free cash to that point, for a couple of reasons. One is, the outlook is still very strong. So in a way, a big building project like the warehouse gets you 3 years' worth of financial flexibility that you didn't have. The first tranche is your building permit. We don't budget for big building permits. They come in, it's $1 million permit. It's a big deal. We don't put it in the budget because we can't count on it, and DLS doesn't like it when we put in revenues that we aren't sure of. But the day they come in with the check and it clears, it's in the bank.
It's a happy day.
It's a happy day. The next tranche is new growth, right? So they build the building, the assessor goes down, says the building is worth X, here's your tax bill, and they pay it. That was not in our revenue forecast. It may have been a portion of it was estimated would come in, but we didn't budget the full amount. So when the full amount does hit, and that is the year we are in right now, you have a very large influx of revenue. And the last piece that is not as well understood is that because we have to make sure that if that taxpayer challenges the value of their asset in an abatement, that we could cover the cost of that abatement, the following year's overlay will be a very large number. If they do not challenge their assessment, or they are not successful in challenging it, that large amount in the overlay will be returned back to the town. So there's this 3-step process with a major development. And at this point now, I feel comfortable saying that the owner of the cubes at Gilboa has now finalized the purchase of pine, sand, and gravel. So, and is coming to the end of the permitting process, the so-called NEPA process. So whether or not they break ground immediately, I doubt it, right? But they are now going to be the owner of that large parcel, and we're going to have follow-on projects in years to come. So I don't think we're overexposing the town to any financial weakness with this spend down of free cash. If we did not have that in the time horizon, I frankly would be much more conservative in the capital budget and ask them to ramp it back a little bit. But when I went through the project list this year, I just didn't see anything that I could take off. All of those items on there are things that we have been spending a lot of money repairing and just keeping it running. The HVAC at the post office is a great example. That thing takes a break when it's not supposed to, and, that's our tenant. We have a lease obligation to make sure that we make sure the space is livable under their standards, under the lease. So I can go on and on about it, but I just want to make sure everybody understood. We're cognizant of the fact that we're drawing it down and we're comfortable with it. In an ideal world, we wouldn't spend a penny, right? But that's not a really good way to run a popsicle stand. The budget that I've put in front of you, to me, is pretty much been put to bed. I don't know what else I could do to refine this in any way. I suppose it would be nice if our dear friends at Maya would provide us with a final quote for property and casualty, but they have not. And so we're gonna do our best estimate, and our best estimate is a fairly large increase in property and casualty insurance. But I have vetted this entire document with my department heads in the last couple of days to make sure we have accurately captured their requests. As I said on the record last time, I have not seen fit to say no to budget requests. Again, the reflection is on the needs of the department, each department, to maintain current service levels. The largest increases this year are in police and fire. We have settled contracts with those unions. Those contract ratifications will be on the warrant as separate articles. We are doing the same exercise. We're keeping their salaries in competition with area salaries. Again, we're not trying to be on the top of the heap. We are trying to be in the middle or the top of the bottom third. But it is an exercise that yielded on the police department side about an 8% increase, and on the fire side, closer to 12. That's driven by the cost of paramedics. Paramedics are very difficult to recruit and retain. We feel like we're in a good spot right now with our retention efforts, and a lot of the turmoil has settled down, and we're looking to go into a very beneficial cycle here.
Matt, can I just ask you about that a little bit?
Sure.
So when you look at the potential paid positions in the total town workforce as opposed to the volunteers like the boards and committees, are we okay? Or do we still have, man, we wish we could find a hire for X?
A hire.
Like we have dispatchers?
So, yeah, we were all set with dispatchers. We're in an interview process right now for highway. I'm confident, we have 7 applicants, maybe 8, and I think we'll get the one that we need out of that, I'm hoping. That's kind of a big pool.
How many people retired?
2.
Was one of them the gentleman who had a ponytail that
Yes.
was long gray?
So just to give you a sense, so that's Ernie Marks, who for years was chairman of the planning board.
Drove the backhoe.
Yeah.
Tobacco.
So I haven't seen him.
Yeah, so he retired last year, and his position, we were calling it lead man, right? So, whatever, 1970s convention. But really, it was sort of the project lead on the smaller tasks from day to day, digging the hole, fixing a pipe. Gentleman ran the hoisting equipment, would also direct the work. Above him, there was a working foreman, or deputy superintendent, whatever you want to call it. That was Adam Furno's position, and the superintendent was John Furno. When John went over to be chief of the fire department, Adam was acting superintendent. Now that John has struck the option in his contract to remain fire chief for the full 3-year term, that releases Adam from the acting role. He is going to be promoted to highway superintendent. And we are going to leave Adam's position open. It has been open this whole time.
Throwing pens at me, Howard?
We're looking to promote to Ernie's position. and then backfill the rank and file positions and add one. So we'll go from 5 to 6.
Okay.
All right, and that's what we're out getting right now. What are we gonna do with Adam's position? My recommendation is that be a facilities person and may be moved as a line item over to permanent building, building maintenance. For years, Ricky Colanero was in that spot, and Adam for a while, part of Adam's compensation came from there. I'm looking to do something significantly different, though. I would like someone who is really all about buildings and building systems, and is able to provide us with advice not only on the town side, but on the school side, on the capital budget, and basically take a big chunk of the operating and maintenance budget and bring it in-house. So we're not paying to have O-rings replaced on heating systems. Somebody who can turn a wrench, know what they're looking at, and at the same time be able to look at a roof full of rooftop units and say, well, you know, that one's so old you can't get parts for it, yada, 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 and down the line. That's what I'm looking to do, and I think the salary there is competitive because Adam was well compensated in his role. So I think we'll be able to go to the marketplace and get a viable candidate.
So you mentioned John, his contract is for 3 years?
Yes.
And
Just
then,
about 2 at this point.
and then it gets re-examined, or do you usually, how does that work?
The employee will re-examine their desire to stay, and the
Okay.
town will review its position on the matter as
Okay.
well.
The previous fire chief, how long was he in his position?
Oh, quite a long time, you had to ask.
Okay. That's all, it's good enough.
Well before me, right?
Yeah.
Well, before me, yeah.
And really led the transition of the department from a call department to having a large
Mhm.
full-time component. So, I mean, we'll always be thankful to Chief Vincent for that,
Yeah.
and the way it has worked out very well for the town. But we'll see, you know, John will cross that bridge when he gets to it and decide what he wants to do there. One of the reasons I have felt strongly about having a number 2 in every department was that during COVID, Chief Vincent got sick, and Deputy Chief John Furno, who was
Yeah.
also the highway superintendent, ended up in the hospital.
Yeah.
So we were without, you know, 2 of our 5 people who were qualified to run emergency operations were out.
Yeah.
So we really felt it, because, you know, now you're asking people to step up and fill, it was a little bit scary for folks to step up and run so many different operations for me. So it was necessary now to think about succession as part of continuity of operations planning, to make sure you know, if somebody gets hit by a bus tomorrow, who's gonna step in and be in charge? You just have to be able to answer that question. So getting back to it, we are gonna add a head in the police department. We're looking to promote from within to add a second school resource officer. And that will open up a vacancy on the patrol side as an entry-level patrol. Okay? So that, we're going to gradually move the public safety departments to their desired staffing level over the course of anywhere from 5 to 10 years, not 1. Bearing in mind, if they cost, after they've been here a couple of years, $80-some-odd thousand, add the health insurance benefit, that brings it over 100. To add 6 people at that price tag is too much for the town, and doesn't generate a concomitant increase in service levels to justify it. But adding that SRO, I think you're gonna feel that, you're gonna notice that. And in the summer, that becomes a full-time patrolman when the schools are out. On the fire side, we're not adding a specific person or position. We've added 70 hours of time to the budget at paramedic step 5 to get laterals to work here as part-time people and cover our need to have a medic on the ambulance the most busy times of the day. So 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, so 70 hours is what we added to the budget. So it's not a head, but it's like a 1.2 FTE, if you were counting it that way. Because they usually work 56, this is 70. So, but that's, let me think, did I add anywhere else? I always forget someone. I've added some part-time outlays at the senior center. You'll notice the bus drivers are in the budget. and a part-time outreach assistant. You know, Patrice for many years has been both the director and the outreach coordinator. She's done 2 jobs. And it's becoming more and more labor intensive, so she's gonna get a part-time person there. And we are agreeing with the library's request to have a larger schedule and to be open more hours a week, so the existing staff will get more hours.
Can I bring up some points about the library?
If you want to.
Okay. What troubled me about that was that it was more competitive spending than need. They were just talking about how they competed with other towns. So I went on the Department of Revenue website and kind of pulled up some statistics. And he identified 23 towns with similar population. And I noticed that, you know, as far as industrial, commercial, we were number 3 at the lowest, with Boxford and Rutland being less. We actually spend more on our library than Sutton does. So, and of the 23, I went to all of their websites and noticed that most are open 6 days. Like less than half are open 5 days. His proposal is still 5 days, so that puts us in the lower echelon of availability days. He doesn't really increase how available the library is. Open till 8 o'clock at night isn't really availability. And then the other ones that are open 5 days, most are open on Friday and closed on Monday, where we're open on Monday and closed on Friday. So he doesn't really address availability in his proposal. So I kind of, you know, if he's asking for over $100,000 more in his budget, he's really not giving us a whole lot back for what he's asking for. And I'm hoping he'll address that when we come back, because I adamantly am not in favor of his ask.
Okay.
So I don't know if somebody can bring that to him so that he'd be ready for.
Well, I think your chair needs to have it back,
Mhm.
and that's a decision you can make. I mean, people will disagree, right? So I was persuaded, and mostly on the circulation materials.
I
right?
agree.
That
Right.
was what was compelling to me.
I
think
agree.
electronic materials are, I mean, it's how we interact with our library in my household.
Certainly agree to what we would need to put us at the funding to keep us on CMARS and that and the like. But to still be only open 5 days a week, that puts us in the lower half. So we're not even available as the other as much.
But how many hours are those?
Doesn't
other-
really, it's availability days, that's what I'm looking at.
I
It's like,
think for working people, having nighttime hours makes it more available.
but till 8 o'clock at night? Right, so
If
I
somebody's not
just.
getting home till 6 o'clock, that really doesn't give them much opportunity. It's 2
Right,
hours.
right, and
you
so
know,
there's
that-
many it's every night he's open till 8.
Right, but I think what we're saying is that to have 5 days a week, open till 8, again, if somebody gets off of work at 5, if they take a half an hour, 45 minutes to
Mhm.
go home, collect
Right.
themselves, whatever, it gives them,
Agreed.
it gives them 2 hours of opportunity at night.
Right,
And then
Yeah.
time on Saturday.
but
Yeah,
most
time
are
on Saturday,
open
too.
6 days a week, and some are open 7, although I'm not advocating that.
Yeah, but again, I think it'd be best to have the department head here so he
Mhm.
can answer you directly.
Right,
I think one of the things he was trying to do was add daytime hours.
mm,
I don't know if I'll ever do this again, I did it once. But as a homeschool parent, you're looking for your local library to be open during the day.
exactly.
And if he's adding daytime hours, he's adding hours for his highest users,
Mhm.
his most intense users, to be able to use this building.
Right,
But I'll let him
right,
parse that out with you,
Right,
rather than
right.
try to make the, because I have no fallback.
right,
I know
no.
what he said.
Yes, right.
But
I was looking at his hours and I was looking at the spend. It isn't like our spend, I mean, you know, we're lower than average on our spend on fire and police, so he's in good company.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, it's not like we're underspending there and he should feel bad that we're so underspending at the library. It's really not the case. But, you know, having the more availability days, I think, and most are closed on Mondays, where there's a lot of Monday holidays, you know, and open on Fridays. So I think that's something that, you know, he never really shared. I know they did a survey never really shared the results of that with us. He had his asks, but he never shared, you
I
know,
wonder
or
if the
backed it
close
up.
on Friday has to do with the town hall being closed on Friday, because Uxbridge Town Hall's also closed on
Right.
Friday, you know, like.
I was just looking at most
Yeah.
libraries,
Yeah,
not town
yeah,
halls.
but I'm thinking maybe that was the correlation between
Mhm.
this is closed, that's closed. you
Right.
know,
I'm taking
so-
notes though, and we can,
Yeah.
let's, how do you
Right.
wanna go?
Right, I just wanted to bring that up.
As for other things that, I don't think there's anything else that jumps out really, right?
So Matt, when it comes to the new highway building, what do you anticipate options might be for how to pay for it? What's your fantasy in a good way, and then what's your nightmare?
Dick, you have such a
Tale of two
way.
cities.
Never ask somebody what their fantasy is in a public meeting. It's not fair. No, financially speaking,
We want
I
to
would
avoid.
like to,
Yeah.
all right, so you asked fantasy, I'll fantasize for a second. My fantasy would be that we could build a highway barn that meets the task and do the work at the fire station that we think we need to do, which there seems to be consensus around a very small addition, in one bond, and that
Okay.
bond would be between 12 and 16 million. With debt service more or less at the level of the debt service that has rolled off in the last couple of years in town. So the taxpayer isn't really seeing a whole lot of up and down. But we're addressing a very real significant situation with health, safety, and welfare of our employees, but also, in the case of highway, you buy all this stuff and then we park it outside. It's just like, you
Yeah.
gotta tear your hair
Yeah.
out looking at that. I do. And so I just think there's a better solution for them.
Is that,
The complexities here really isn't the buildings themselves. We could probably, look, if we were really smart, we could almost finance a lot of this with free cash, right? Depending on how much we build up and did. The water service at that point in town is not all that. Once we expand the fire station, we will be under guidelines require the building to be sprinkled. And it's a little bit uncomfortable advocating for no sprinklers in a fire station. Because you don't have adequate water pressure. And we also know from Bob Sullivan, the system director for the water system, that most of our breaks are on Main from roughly Franklin Street to the Common. But especially the hill going down towards Family Convenience and up towards the old landfill. There have been many breaks there. In terms of emergency planning, we always think about the worst. We plan for the worst, hope for the best. Breaks on Main Street are very troublesome for a number of reasons. It cuts off one part of town from the other, and given the level of severity, we could dewater a significant part of the town. And so we're trying to marry a water project that is actually more expensive than the building projects in order to enable the building projects at their maximum efficiency. So it would be better to run water to a new highway barn than dig a well, right? Or try to piggyback on an existing well because there's a house there. I don't even know what the flow rates are. You know, there's just a different regulatory burden and service demand on a residential asset versus a commercial grade asset. And that's what's lending a lot of complexity to this, right? So the strategy is to cut those building costs down to bare bones and just buy what we need and leave it. The designer should be tasked, in my opinion, I'm going to try to task them to think about modular construction, adding on to a building as the town's needs grow, and leaving sufficient room on the lot. And the way the building is built, it should be built to accommodate future additions without having to build it all now, say we're building a 30-year building. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And, because I think that's what Douglas can afford and what will be supported ultimately.
I'd like to think that the highway bond makes its own case, but it needs to be priced appropriately. So how are we gonna get this to conclusion? What's unusual about this is that we're pushing the designer to do something they don't really wanna do, which is take a lot of their markup out of the project. And we've been so bold as to say, you need to make, like, what is your fee for this? Just tell us what your fee is, and we can work around that. Don't be so reliant upon the traditional percentage of project calculation.
Right.
Just tell us what you need. And don't inflate the cost of the project to get it what it is that you want. It's an unpleasant conversation, because you don't want to guarantee them what they're asking for, but you still need to know that to have a fruitful negotiation. That's kind of where we're at. So I don't believe in negotiating without leverage, so I think I'm gonna go out and get some price quotes from these metal building companies and say, if we go direct, design build, it's gonna be X. Work with us, it's gonna be X, Y. Where we have a house doctor, we prefer to work with them because they have done very good work. But that is where I gotta get to, enough tension in the room where they realize that there is a viable alternative to them, and they come our way a little bit. So it's the Douglas way. This is what we do with everything. We wrestle it to the ground with health insurance and all the rest of it. This is what we've been doing for a long time.
Sandy will go to prefab.com.
I will.
So the thing is, right, you don't need to pay the markup on the building, buy the building, then labor is prevailing wage. Massachusetts can be prevailing wage if you know, as soon as you swing us the first hammer. So you know that. But don't pay the markup on that either. So, oh, I facilitated getting you the labor that would build the building for you with this kit. Well, no, I'll buy the kit, I'll buy the labor, and I'll take your markup out on top of the fee, right? So that's kind of where we're at now. We're unbundling all of these contingencies and layers of fees and realizing there's way too much fat here. It's just not cool.
So Matt, as far as what you handed out tonight between now and the town meeting, you expect these to stay pretty, these
I'm
are
going to
set,
be
right?
very resistant to any changes at
Okay.
this point. This is typically when we put the budget to bed, the March 10th to March 30th
Mhm.
timeframe. It's the 26th. It's time to close it up.
All right, any other questions for Matt? Anybody? Yeah, Jean has a
Yeah.
comment or
The only
question?
thing I want to remind you is the VDT piece will be coming out. That is a special article.
Yeah.
So the assessment piece and the debt assessment. So you're going to see the number drop when you go to look at this at the public hearing on April 9th.
So that won't be in the warrant?
It will be in the warrant,
Oh.
but it
This is
won't be
separate.
part of this.
Oh, okay,
Right.
out of
Yeah.
this,
And the
okay.
numbers are
Right.
slightly different, but
Okay.
it doesn't matter because they're in the special article anyways. I will notify Justin. All department heads will be requested to join us on April 9th for the public hearing. But I did note the time, so I'll have them watch that piece of the segment.
Yeah, I'll probably have to go to the library too. I don't want them, I love them, you know,
Yeah.
I go there
Or
all
you
the
could-
time.
You could
Yeah.
write him a little letter with
Yeah.
some of your concerns, and he could write you back, too. I mean,
You know, I don't
there are a
want.
lot of
I
ways
don't
to do
want-
it.
I'd like to say yes to everything, but you know, it's groceries are up, everything's up, and then you're getting our aged population, fixed incomes, you know? Yeah, it's scary stuff.
But he'd
But I
he'd
think-
be happy to have a chat with you.
I'm sure he would. I love Justin. He's a great guy.
Yeah, Lynn?
But I think Matt just was saying he doesn't see any reason to not give the money.
But again, I think where we ended up is a good spot. I mean, you have questions you want to ask,
Yes.
and I think he needs to answer them.
Right.
And their answer to my satisfaction may not be the same threshold as yours.
Right.
So let's have the conversation.
Right.
Anything else, Jean?
No,
Mr. Wojcik, thank you.
All right, may I be excused?
You are dismissed. Thank you.
Did you eat your vegetables?
Yeah, I-
Okay, then you can, yes.
Oh, and by the way, since you are all volunteers, I hope some of you are planning to come to our volunteer recognition and thank you dinner tomorrow night.
I didn't even know about it.
I have-
Well, that's a shame because we're making Italian food.
oh,
You're making Italian food? Who's wait?
Well, who are you laughing
Yeah,
at? The
Matt,
staff.
Matt's- no,
No, the
Matt's
staff.
joking.
We pulled together a group of staff people and we're
Yeah.
gonna make some stuff.
Wojcik's
You
an
might be the
Italian
only
name.
person who knows what the fascio magru is, but I'm making it. So you know it's gonna be good.
be hanging out with a
It's a
bunch of
soup.
little girls.
Yeah,
It's a Sicilian braciole.
Where
I
and
know you
when?
like northern food.
yeah. Well,
Here, 6:30? 6?
All right,
I think
6
it's
o'clock.
okay,
And
all right,
any town volunteers?
Volunteers.
can come?
yeah, all right.
Because we thank you for your service at no compensation, and it's already been 2 hours. All right, see you guys.
Thank you, Matt.
Good night.
So anyway, so our homework is to read over both
Other stuff.
warrants, and we'll get ready for our,
Wait.
oh, Gene, yeah.
Did you want to see if Mr. Benerick is available to discuss some of the other articles? He is,
Like which ones?
I believe he is on the annual and the special.
Who is?
Manerick.
Benerick.
Oh,
I mean, are they of such
He was here
nature?
earlier.
Yes, he
He
was.
was, he
Are
was.
they of such nature that we need long explanations, or?
I can't speak to them. It would be Article 7 on the special,
the North Street project.
and there's at least one on the annual.
Well, I'll
He's
defer
in
to the group.
selectmen's room if you want me to poke
You
him.
want to try to get Bob in now, everybody, or wait
Will
until
he
2
be
weeks?
here on the 9th?
He be here on the 9th?
He will be requested to be here on the 9th.
I think we'll just read it over
Yeah.
at home, and if we have questions, we'll have those ready for 2 weeks from now. That sound okay, everybody? Oh, here he is.
Wow.
I'm next over there, I was just getting an update over here.
So anything we need to talk about, Bob? Anything hard to understand or controversial?
I'm open to questions.
Because we haven't really read any of this yet.
Okay. Which one do you want to, there's 2 of them, which one do you want to?
Well, we have to read them first.
Well, why don't you walk us through
Yeah.
the 2 that you
Yeah.
will be addressing?
Why don't you take the lead on these?
The North Street project additional match. I
That's
believe
on special, right?
Special, which
7.
is Article 7.
Yep,
We had a $529,000 site readiness grant award, which we just finished up last month. There was 100,000, the total is 750,000 for design and engineering. The remainder of that is $100,000 from a town meeting match several years ago, spring of fall of 2022. And then we had an opera fund of 120,700 from opera funds. Right now, Stantec, because there was more design than anticipated, we're in the 67,000 overrun or on the budget right now. So we need an additional $67,000 to finish this, so that it's in the 800,000 range right now for the design and engineering of the entire Upper North Street.
So the
but
trigger.
not the work itself.
No, not the way, this is just the design to get bid-ready documents. I'm in the process of writing a MassWorks grant right now to support that. The project right now is about $13.5 million.
Okay.
So I'm writing a MassWorks grant to start the funding process for the actual work. This is just the design in engineering.
Would you anticipate that MassWorks grant to pay for the entirety of the project, or?
The max is $5 million. The remainder would be picked up by a developer. And there's also some federal money available, which I have to do the MassWorks first.
The remainder would be picked up by a developer. So this is widening North Street, right?
Yes.
And then developing what, the parcel in the middle on the right?
That
To the
would be the Pine project. The future Pine project, which is proposal, it's about a $450 million private investment, 2.8 million square feet of warehouse buildings.
So Bob, what's triggering the 67,000 in just layman's terms here? What's the design
Additional
cost?
design, we had an outreach meeting with the residents. We had to revise some walls that came out of that. Bob Sullivan and I went over all the water design, because they're running a 12-inch water line up the entire 5,500 feet of the street to feed our water tank, proposed water tank. There's extra valves put in there, and we changed some design of the pipe to get the connections off-street. So if we, for instance, Pond Street, the original design had a 12-inch by 8-inch T in the street to feed the 8-inch line into Pond Street. We wanted a 12 by 12 tee with a 20-foot stick of 12-inch, then a reducer to get it off street. So if we ever increase that line to 12 inches, we're not ripping up a brand-new road. We're
Yeah.
stubbing it off, and that took into account 4 streets. Well, that creates extra design work.
So would it be fair to say that the town asked the design company to redo the design, and that made the price
Right,
go up?
it was basically our input because of the outreach meeting. We did a balloon study, which was
Okay.
$14,000. The residents in that meeting were concerned they'd see this huge elevated 300,000 gallon tank. Well, we did a balloon study at the exact height where the tank would be, and one house saw the balloon.
Mm,
So it calmed their concerns,
Gotcha.
addressed their concerns.
Okay, any question on that for Bob, anybody? And then what's your other one, Bob?
The other one is, we have 2 strips of land.
Just the annual now?
Yeah, in the annual. I don't have the article number on it.
It's
'Cause-
Article 20, town and property ownership.
20,
This is
yes.
Oxford one.
Article 20?
Town-owned property in Oxford.
Right.
All right, want to walk
You
us
have
through
the
that?
map?
Yeah.
Okay. It's 2 small strips of land, and this is the tail end of a tax taking that we did for the mill in 2012. If you remember when, several years ago, when we did the land taking, or we sold a parcel of that land for the new, where the new bridge is?
Yep.
That's the same piece of land. This is just the tail end, but this is in Uxbridge. This might be needed for road expansion to support the Pine project. It might not be, but the first step is to get the voters to deem it surplus, to allow the selectmen, if they need to, on a short notice, to put it up for auction or sale, or whatever that process is.
So the backstory to this is, we've got new construction going on there, and this is the prep for maybe some further expansion.
Right, because it is very time-consuming, and the next available time to address this would be for the fall town meeting, and if they need to do this for design purposes in the summer, there's no time. And this might never happen. This is just the first step to be prepared. Preparation is the key right here
Mhm.
to support that Pine project. They might move that access road where that land might be needed.
Mhm.
And it might not be, I don't know. I was just advised, just in case.
Any questions on Article 20 for Bob, anybody? Anything else, Bob?
No, those are the only 2.
And you'll be at the public hearing in 2 weeks in case people have questions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And I'll be at the town meeting.
Because their people will have questions.
Yes. That's it?
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Gene, anything else for us? All right, anybody have anything else? So,
Oh, I lied.
okay, Gene?
I'm sorry, Howard. I just wanted to let you know that Article 19 on the annual will be removed.
Being removed, you said?
Removed, deleted.
Yay.
Which one was that again?
Stabilization account.
Stabilization.
Oh,
Good news.
okay.
And it's being removed because we don't have enough information on it?
After consideration, I think they're taking it back on their guidance.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, anything else? Gene?
Really?
I have a copy of the email if you guys would.
No?
Okay, anyone else? So as far as you know, will everybody be here on April 9?
Yes.
Okay, hope so.
No.
No?
Yes.
Oh,
We got opening day, right?
I never speak as to what the important reason I might have for missing.
He'll be recovering from the eclipse the day before,
I
right?
will be in another meeting in
Another
Boston.
yes.
All right, motion to adjourn, anybody?
So moved.
Second.
Len, second by Mike. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
I have a friend
I
that
think
showed up
Lynn's
from
in
New
favor of
Jersey.
it.